This week on Instant Experts, Iran is running out of leaders and the world is running out of gas.
How do we declare victory without fixing anything?
The West's Tigers shocked the world with an opening round win.
And I, the honk, not you, a Henry Lee, was there to see it.
And a red-hot field in Ahmed Khan of the Week.
It is our 50th show and everybody wants to win it.
Welcome back to Instant Experts Golden Jubilee Edition. It's all the latest news explained by idiots, here to keep you sane in a crazy world. I'm Henry Lee, and as always, I'm here with my dear friend, the Honk. Honky, welcome.
Henry, my dear friend, my dear fellow, what a pleasure to be here with you today.
Where are you broadcasting from today, Honky? It looks like you've moved again.
Oh yeah, I forgot to lower my voice. I'm in the need to know basis, but I'm in the Instant Expert situation room. we have a slight problem, and probably not the best time to tell you. Iran has refused to accept my apology for calling the Ayatollah a cunt, so we have a bit of a problem.
Well, Honky, it looks to me like the Instant Experts stolen valor room, because I'm not sure you've earned those flags over your shoulder.
That is not fair. I didn't, but someone did. The top one's actually Pete Hegseth's. He got it for sharpening a pencil once in Iraq. And the MMA guy, the Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma, got the bottom one for a congressional military mission so secret that not even the US military apparently knows about it.
That's become a story this week, hasn't it?
It has. It's quite an amusing one. Anyway, it is our 50th episode. That is very special, of our show about crooks, fuckwits and morons. The world is still full of crooks, fuckwits and morons. The only thing that has gotten better is our expertise.
Really?
Last week was week 2 of both footy season and the war, and we tipped the US to beat Iran and the West Tigers to get flogged.
We were wrong on both counts, Honk.
Actually, that's true. We also said Kyla Jacchio were coming back, and now they're definitely fired, so we're batting 3 for 3. Anyway, more on my golden afternoon in the sparkling sunshine of Leichhardt, watching the Tigers give a footballing masterclass, while you, Henry, were analysing your share portfolio in the face of war and the SaaSpocalypse a little later. But for now, let us focus.
Discharged.
But for now, let us focus on the big stuff.
Okay, so what's the latest, Honky?
Well, Carl said he's going to sue, and Jackie O has gone, oh, sorry, you meant Iran. I'm sorry. So much to talk about Iran. Last week, you quoted U2 asking, is it getting better or does it feel the same? This week, I'd say we're mostly stuck in a moment you can't get out of.
Maybe a bit of still haven't found what I'm looking for, Honk.
Well, they certainly haven't found any nuclear weapons yet.
No weapons of mass destruction, Honky. I'm shocked. They're still looking for the ones in Iraq from 2002.
That is true. Although, to be fair, Iran pretty clearly does have some enriched uranium. They have said so themselves. Everybody else thinks so too. It's just pretty hard to find it when it's in Iran and the US is hundreds of miles away on ships in the Arabian Sea.
The Director of National Intelligence, though, Tulsi Gabbard, said this week when she was appearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee that as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. Operation Midnight Hammer being when they bombed Fordo last year.
Fordo mate. Fordo mate. Good mate of Davo's.
Indeed.
Tulsi Gabbard did say that, you're quite right, but that was only in her written statement. In her oral testimony, she changed that somewhat and said that prior to Operation Epic Fury, the intelligence community assessed that Iran was trying to recover from the severe damage to its nuclear infrastructure that was done during Operation Midnight Hammer.
So Iran was doing nothing except it was doing something.
Yeah.
So the threat is gone, but it's still there.
Listen, you can be clever about it, but she could not have been clearer.
Speaking of being clearer, we should clarify for listeners that Operation Epic Fury is the current Iran operation named after a gay porno, and Operation Midnight Hammer was the previous Iran operation named after a gay porno.
Neither of them to be confused with Splendor in the Arse, which I think is just a really great movie. Great film.
It's funny you say that, Honk. It was Oscar week this week, and I was shocked that Splendor in the Arse didn't get Best Adult Film.
No, that one went, as everyone knows, that one went to one blowjob after another. To me, it's just straight homophobia.
Well, is there another kind, Honky? Is it, by definition, straight homophobia?
Well, there are plenty of Republicans in the closet. Anyway,
fair.
Tulsi Gabbard had some other interesting testimony as well. As we've discussed, the Trump administration's really offered no clear, consistent justification for the Iran war, although As we've said on the show, we think there are plenty of real justifications. Iran's nukes, Iran's sponsorship of regional terrorism against Israel and the Gulf states, international terrorism, its appalling, in fact, homicidal treatment of its own people.
We also said distraction from the Epstein files.
That is definitely a reason. But the one the Trump administration has been leaning to, especially this week, is this idea of imminent threat. That is, that Iran is an imminent threat to the United States of America itself.
And was that the assessment of US intelligence, Honk?
Well, as it really depends on who you believe. Last year, the US Defense Intelligence Agency assessed that it would be at least a decade before Iran could produce weapons that would reach the United States. And then this week, a senior analyst called Joe Kent, who was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center in the US government, quit his position, saying in his resignation letter that he could not in good conscience support the war in Iran as, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Now, Joe Kent's wife was an intelligence officer who was killed by a suicide bomb in Syria. So he's understandably pretty sensitive to putting Americans in harm's way in the Middle East. Should say he's not a great hero. He's a bit of a fuckwit, by the way, unqualified anti-Semite. But he may not be wrong about the lack of direct threat to the United States.
What about Tulsi Gabbard? What did she have to say about imminent threat?
Well, Tulsi Gabbard, who, again, is the Director of National Intelligence, remember that, said that, quote, it is not a responsibility of the intelligence community to determine what is or is not an imminent threat.
I thought that was literally its job. If it's not, then whose job is it?
Well, she says it's the president's job.
Well, that's like saying a lawyer's job is to explain the law, not to give advice, Honk. Everybody knows that the client makes the decision, but they make it based on expert advice that they're given. Otherwise, you don't need a lawyer.
Yeah, look, to be fair, Tulsi Gabbard might be there in her job for other reasons. I mean, she's a Trump loyalist, except that is when she's being loyal to Putin.
I didn't realise there was a difference, Honk. But the point is, no one is quite clear what the US is trying to achieve in Iran, even though everyone agrees that the Iranian regime is bad for the country, the region, and the world.
That's exactly right. And since no one knows what the goal is, no one's sure what winning looks like either.
Well, last week we said that keeping Iran from blowing up the neighbours would be a pretty good result.
Yeah, and regime change would be a good result too, although, as we've talked about also, that's now looking, I think, much less likely to happen. In fact, Tulsi Gabbard also told the Senate in that hearing you talked about that the Iranian regime was very damaged but had not collapsed and didn't seem likely to collapse.
Right.
Although another key leader was killed this week when Israel blew up Iran's top national security official, a guy called Ali Larijani. He's effectively Iran's intelligence head, who was rumoured to be the de facto ruler of Iran while the new Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei is either dead, seriously injured or in a coma.
I heard he was airlifted to Russia for surgery.
In that case, he's almost certainly dead or in a coma.
Hey, come on, Honk. They got good surgeons in Russia. Plastic surgeons, at least.
Hey, sure, Mojtaba's got no legs, but check out his new rack.
I hope he covers it up. Now, why do you think that the regime change is now less likely in Iran, given half of the leadership are dead?
Because Iran has shut the Strait of Hormuz.
That's the strait that Iran controls at the entrance to the Persian Gulf.
Right, and that's basically the gateway to oil coming out of Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. So we're talking about 20 to 25% of the world's oil supply, which means prices have gone nuts, which means that there'll be less and less support for the war, and the US will need to find an off-ramp pretty soon. The war is obviously, not surprisingly, also costing the US a fortune. The estimates are roughly $2 billion US a day.
But surely, Honk, the US is expecting Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz. That can't be a shock to it. That would be the first thing Iran would do to get leverage other than retaliate militarily.
Well, the US military would have expected it. They plan every scenario there is. But it's unclear if Trump was expecting it for reasons that beg a belief.
Maybe the Navy didn't tweet it, Honk.
Maybe. I mean, it would have been in the briefing papers, but Trump doesn't read the briefing papers or probably anything else. So we had a very strange situation during the week where the Hormuz Strait closes. And then Trump turns around and asks for the world's help to reopen it. And everybody in the world says, no, get fucked.
Who did he ask?
Well, literally everybody, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, everyone in NATO, basically, China, Korea, Japan, Australia, you name it. You got hard nose from the Europeans and the Asian countries. And Australia said it couldn't send ships because we can't spare any because one's in the shop and the other one's got a rotten day off.
Okay, I wouldn't have thought that NATO has any obligation to assist, given that none of its members have been attacked, which is the purpose of NATO.
You're quite right. It basically said you started a Trumpy, you finish it. If you want us, we'll be smoking shit tons eating a croissant.
Threatening to invade Greenland probably didn't help, given Denmark is a NATO country.
Nor did the Second Iraq War, which most of the NATO members supported, but which was based on bullshit.
Yeah, as we supported it in Australia. But Trump has been critical of NATO for underspending on defence and basically being a bunch of wimps, hasn't he?
In the usual way with Trump, he's right 1% of the time. And on this, I think he's kind of got a point. Europe are a bunch of absolute cowards who never met yet a dictatorial regime it could even be halfway fucked to bother standing up to. And that's history in Europe. But at the same time, as we've discussed previously, there is a good reason the US and others didn't want Germany, for example, to ever have a massive army again, and why the US stationed its own army there instead. And that's because Germany tried the big army thing in 1914 and in 1939. I don't know if you ever heard of it. And it frankly didn't go so well for anybody else. But Trump, being Trump, of course, immediately then said, well, he didn't care about those countries all saying no. He was just testing their loyalty. He was expecting them to wimp out and that America didn't need any help anyway. This place was dead anyway. The party sucks.
Well, we're back to you too, Honk, with or without you. I'm doing Hormuz, with or without you. But maybe there's a third way. I heard a great clip, which I want to play, of an Aussie journo named Latika Burke, and she's speaking to the Finnish president, the very dapper and quite intelligent Alexander Stubb. She asks a very interesting question, and he gives a most unusual response.
Just following on from that and your point about indulging in realpolitik now, why doesn't Europe go to Trump and say, if you want assistance in the Gulf, here's what we want you to do on Ukraine?
I think it's a really good idea. I might pick you up on that. No, I think it's actually a really good idea. So,
I'm available for advice.
Can my team take your phone number, please? No, but I mean, yeah. I'll think about it. I'll talk about it with my colleagues. Some of them are here in London today.
Superb stuff. Good on him for realising it was a good idea. Yeah. But really, he had to have that pointed out to him? What?
What is it you say you do here?
Although I can still understand the Euros not wanting to get dragged in, especially as they weren't, as you said, consulted in the first place.
Although, just as we record this, a few of the Europeans, Honky, including the UK, plus Japan, are saying that they'll assist.
Yeah, well, that's because they need the oil and or they're crawling up the Trumpy. But it's really about the oil, right? I mean, gas prices are going to kill them.
Yeah.
Did you hear, by the way, Trump's new explanation of why he didn't tell them in advance he was going to attack Iran? As you said, these stories change every hour and a half. Now he's saying it was the element of surprise. He literally said to the Japanese Prime Minister, you didn't tell us about Pearl Harbor, right?
But Honk, even we knew the attack was coming. Even we on Instant Experts. Anyway, where to from here?
Look, perhaps not popular to say, but I think we think the war has probably done quite a lot of good in the sense that it has degraded Iran's military capability significantly, which limits its ability to keep attacking everybody else. It may also have softened the regime up, if not for this time, then for the future, for regime change, possibly the near future. For all their bluster, it's also possibly given Iran's leaders, I think, some pause for thought, given they keep getting blown the fuck up.
Yes, he'd be a brave man or woman to apply to be the tea lady at this point in the Iranian government. But to paraphrase a great headline from The Onion, the US probably hasn't bombed the anti-American sentiment out of the regime, has it?
No.
So like the sand people in Star Wars, the regime might be back soon and in numbers. And that's certainly what happened in Afghanistan with the Taliban and to some extent in Iraq and Libya post-Saddam and post-Gaddafi. Both countries had a ton of sectarian and other violence and still have pretty fragile government. You wouldn't call them thriving democracies at this stage.
I suppose it depends on how many of these regime leadership survive and whether the US can find someone to do business with, you know, someone who's more interested in making money out of oil than destroying Israel for quite quirky religious reasons.
And that strategy has worked for the Gulf states, and they've generally stayed out of trouble in recent years. In fact, they've wanted to normalise relations with Israel via the Abraham Accords, and now the Gulf states own half the world. So basically, them and the Norwegians have the biggest sovereign wealth funds on the planet, and maybe a couple of Chinese and Singaporean funds in there as well. So they'd be smart, Iran, if they just kept the oil money, stopped blowing people up and created a bit of wealth for their people. Is that what we can expect, Honk?
Yeah, by the way, I didn't know that about the Norwegians. How interesting. But yes,
Yeah, they discovered oil in the 60s. They were a fishing country that discovered oil and very smartly decided to put the proceeds into a sovereign wealth fund. And now they own about 1.5% of the listed companies in the world, including in Australia. So every stock on the Australian Stock Exchange is owned about 1.5% to 2% by Norway.
Right, that's why it's sort of 1.5%, 2%, so well dressed, polite, and good looking. Good looking. They smell it.
And a penchant for cod.
Bit fishy. But in answer to your question, what can we expect? I think we can expect at some point pretty soon the US to declare victory based on something, and stage withdrawal in the next little while, and then oil will start to flow again. And if the Iranians look sideways, Israel will bomb them to shit again.
Yeah.
In fact, I read a great tweet that summarized it by Derek Tinas, I think is how it's pronounced. It says, for the record, the President of the United States is now simultaneously claiming that he has won the war, is currently winning the war, needs help to win the war, and needs no help to win the war, all to destroy the nuclear program that he claims to have destroyed already last year.
And the first reply is, don't forget, this is not a war, depending on who you ask. Anyway, let's hope it resolves soon, Honky, because otherwise we're in big trouble.
What do you mean? Fuck? Are we talking about your fucking share portfolio again?
Well, it is taking some punishment, but I'm worried about my car, Honky. How am I going to get to golf if Australia runs out of petrol?
I forget justice for the Iranian people. Henry has a tea time.
Well, we jest, Honk, but Australia is literally a month away. I don't know if you knew this, from running out of gas.
I didn't know that. Shit.
No, we've got 36 days of petrol, 34 days of diesel, and 32 days of jet fuel. And that was as of mid this week. So the whole country is about to start working from home, except, of course, my home state of Victoria, which hasn't left home since COVID, except to play golf.
Yeah, for which, by the way, you still need fuel. And all your fucking golf courses are halfway around the world. How does this happen, by the way? Sorry, just about Australia. Aren't we in Australia? We always think of ourselves as I think of us as one of the richest nations in the world in terms of resources. How are we in this situation?
Oh, well, we are, but not in oil. We had Bass Strait, but it's almost run out. And oil is obviously what you need to make petrol, diesel, and avgas. We've also closed most of our refineries. We used to have 8, and now we basically have 2, plus a very, very small one. And even the ones we have don't process the oil that we actually produce. So basically all of our petrol is imported. And if shipping is disrupted or diverted and or the price goes through the roof or production's allocated, we are screwed.
So if you wanted to invade Australia, you wouldn't have to. You just cut off the oil and wait a month or so?
Pretty much. Don't joke about it. I mean, we use 1 million barrels of oil a day, but we only produce 300,000. And we produce the light stuff, not the heavy crude that our refineries use.
Oh, forgive me, I forgot that you're a petroleum engineer now.
Well, that's why Trump is so big on energy security. I mean, he's a fuckwit, as we know, but he's not wrong about everything.
In fact, he's actually often right, but he forgets to do anything about the stuff he's right about because he's so busy being a fuckwit.
He's also wrong as often as he's right.
That's true.
Australia will have to take a good hard look at a whole bunch of things post this crisis, things affecting national security, from energy security to defence strategy and even sovereign AI, so we can't be fully controlled by another country.
You mean China or the US?
Well, one probably protects us from the other, Honk, in both directions. Okay, folks, time as always for some shout outs to listeners and viewers to whom we're especially grateful for sticking with us through 50 episodes.
We are, yes.
And Honky, we have loyal listeners all over Australia, of course.
Including Darwin.
Including Darwin, as we discussed with great glee last week, although strangely this week it has come up as Langenzeersdorf, Austria.
Wait, it didn't come up in its own right?
It did not. It's like when West Tigers won the premiership. It's cause for joy and celebration. It's also the start of a 20-year plus drought.
Well, we'll cross back to Darwin in episode 157. Where is Langenzeersdorf, by the way?
It's just north of Vienna, actually, in the eastern part of Austria. So it looks like a lovely spot right on the Danube. And I reckon if you jumped on a lilo out the front of Langenzeersdorf, you'd float south and east through Vienna, Bratislava, Budapest, Belgrade, and end up in the Black Sea. Ukraine would be on your left and Romania would be on your right. So just be a bit careful when you get off the raft.
Yeah, you're either going to get attacked by a Russian drone or Dracula.
We've got lots of regulars around the world, Honk, including old favourites like Falls Church, Virginia, Lincoln, New Hampshire, and Whitstable in Kent, some of our most loyal listeners with us every single week.
Thank you very much. But you also told me, and I was very excited, we have new listeners in unspecified locations in Peru, Sri Lanka, and Turkey.
That's right.
Why are the locations unspecified?
Well, sometimes it tells us the city, but sometimes it only tells us the country. Plus, it's a time of war, Honky. Maybe it's classified.
Well, thanks for listening wherever you are, even if it's not where you are claiming to be.
Like you.
We also had plenty of feedback this week. Regular Julian, long-time great supporter of the show, we're very grateful to, was excited to let us know, in fact, he let us know first, that RFK Jr.'s insane vaccine policies had been struck down by a US court.
Presumably on the grounds that they are completely moronic.
Well, two grounds, moronic and dangerous. The court found that the Department of Health and Human Services had illegitimately bypassed the so-called Advisory Committee on Immunisation Practices, or ACIP, recommendations on vaccines. That committee's recommendations have been traditionally non-partisan and science-based.
Yeah, but Honk, who wants science when you have a fatal disease? What happened to hope? Faith? God, Honky!
I mean, this is not only
Pray.
petrol. You should have been. I mean, you are a doctor. Not should have been. You are a doctor. You are a medical doctor. The court further found that the ACIP had been illegitimately reconstituted, which is a fancy way of saying the doctors and scientists were all replaced by morons. In fact, 6 of the 15 new members of ACIP had no experience of vaccines at all.
6 of the Advisory Committee on Immunisation had no experience with vaccines.
Yeah.
Except presumably receiving them at some point and being in rude health accordingly. Anyway, thank you, Julian, and thank you, Judge, for making what sounds like a very sensible decision.
And kids, good news this Christmas, you may get a present instead of just measles and rickets.
Now, Honky also heard from season 1 regular Lady Rebecca from Centennial Park.
She of the very alluring elocution lessons.
Yes, and the unconsummated romance with the acting Chief Justice, another regular listener, currently hiding in a bunker somewhere in Israel. Probably not alone, knowing him.
Lady Rebecca had her chance. So, Lady Rebecca, what did she have to say?
Well, Honk, she had golden jubilee greetings. She texted as follows. Henry and Honky, 50 already. How marvellous. Now allow me to defer to the crisp elocution of Barbara and Neil.
She means Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond.
It seems you don't bring me flowers. You don't sing me love songs. Have the season 1 judiciary, that'll be the acting Chief Justice, aristocracy and Melburnian lovers ridden off into the Hormuz sunset. Their only hope of return, a liaison with one Ahmed Khan, or a regrettable appearance in a de-redacted file. Later, Rebecca of Centennial Park.
Well, they were pretty passive-aggressive congratulations greetings, Henry, weren't they? We have listeners all over the world demanding attention. We can't just do royal laps of Centennial Park.
Waving. Look, I think she was just having fun. She went on to say, so many unbelievably talented crooks, fuckwits and morons in the public arena in 2026 that you have no further need for filler. It's truly astounding.
Well, again, with the passive aggression, I mean, we'd never describe any of our listeners as filler, but yes, it's hard to believe that 50 episodes have just filled themselves. I don't know about you. It seems that we open up the laptop every week and the crooks, fuckwits and morons just run from all directions and jump onto our screen.
We didn't even know what the show was going to be about, did we? If we can look back for 1 second. I mean, you just had the title, Instant Experts, which I found extremely funny, given that's the stock in trade of 50-year-old white guys worldwide like us.
And people with purple hair and rich parents too.
And then Trump said he wanted Greenland, and here we are.
Yeah, via Doge, tariffs, a few wars in the Middle East, and a car ad on the White House lawn.
That's still the low point, I reckon. Just the sheer venality of it all. Trump was literally a used car salesman.
Yeah, Henry, fine, but everything computer.
Okay, time for quick shots.
Yes, and Henry, in honour of it being our 50th episode, I wanted to return briefly to maybe the biggest social media event I think of our time doing the show so far, Coldplay Gate.
What a corker. The American CEO and his head of HR caught on camera in front of tens of thousands of people at a Coldplay concert having an affair and having it pointed out by lead singer Chris Martin.
I mean, truly a classic from July last year. But this week, of all weeks, our 50th anniversary episode. The story took one final amazing twist. The HR executive who was caught up in it, Kristen Cabot, turns out didn't only have her career ruined, it also turns out that she is the single unluckiest woman in the history of the world. This story is unbelievable. You hear these terrible stories of appalling luck. Soldiers who were killed 1 minute after the end of World War I because they hadn't heard the armistice had been signed.
There was that poor Pakistani fellow who died on his first day in the job, working security at Westfield Bondi Junction when that maniac ran amok with a knife.
And there's also that German woman who escaped the Bali bombing in 2002, and then she came to Australia to unwind and recover afterwards, went to the Northern Territory, got eaten by a crocodile.
What? Is that true?
True story. True story. But still, all those people, nothing compared to Kristen Cabot. So this week she was on Oprah's podcast. She tells a story. She went to the Coldplay concert with her married boss, as you talked about, the CEO of the company. And at the time, she and her own husband, Kristen's husband, they were actually trial separated.
Right.
She gets a text when she gets to the concert. It's probably 60, 80,000 people, right? She gets a text from her daughter telling her that both Kristen and her husband, the father, are at the Coldplay concert separately. And as I said, Kristen and the husband are trial separated, right? But the husband doesn't know she's having an affair with the married boss.
Right.
And she ponders, well, should I tell him? And then she figures, look, it's 60, 80,000 people. What are the odds of going to run into each other? I'm not going to worry about it.
Like, cut to the video screen and he watches it at the same time as everybody else.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Now, that's bad luck. But the truth is, let's be honest, in life, most of us make our own luck. And that is something the activist and the former Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, found out the hard way this week in one of the, frankly, greatest pieces of self-immolation in recent memory. Do you remember that Buddhist monk who set himself alight in 1963 in Saigon to protest the South Vietnamese government?
Oh, I remember the photo vividly. I think the fellow's name was Tuk Un Uk. Seared on my memory. It was his.
Wipe it. Wipe it from your memory, because the guy is a fucking amateur compared to Grace Tame in the self-immolation stakes. Now, I think we both say she's earned a lot of respect, and this is what got her the Australian of the Year award, for her advocacy for victims of sexual assault.
Yeah, although she squandered a lot of it recently when she waded middle-class white instant expert style and Honk. Don't we hate those guys?
I hate those guys.
She waded into the Israel-Gaza crisis and encouraged the Sydney crowd to, quote-unquote, globalise the Intifada. Only a few weeks after the globalised Intifada led to 15 people being murdered in Australia's worst ever terrorist attack on Bondi Beach, which was aimed squarely at the Jewish community. Big party foul for mine.
Yeah, and that event has led to virtually all of Grace Tame's corporate speaking work, which is how she earns her income, drying up completely. Now, she's blamed that on a, quote, smear campaign.
By herself.
Well, for me, the comedy character Norman Gunston's famous question to the former Aussie Prime Minister John Courtenay does come to mind, right?
I know the one you're thinking of. That's where Gunston says, looking back, was it a conspiracy, sir, or did everyone work out you're a fuckwit at about the same time?
Exactly. Anyway, Grace has to do something, right? She's got no paid engagements. She also runs a charity on the sexual violence advocacy work she does. So she goes on ABC Breakfast Radio, hosted by Hamish McDonald this past Monday.
ABC would be pretty friendly crowd, wouldn't it?
You'd think. But then she proceeded to blow her own head clean off. We're just going to play some highlights of this. Just have a listen.
I wonder if you could answer something that's come in. Quite a few people asking about this. Timney's texted in saying, can you please ask Grace why she's selective in her outrage? She says, I've never heard her condemn or speak out on behalf of the Israeli women who were raped and killed by Hamas on October 7. Have you spoken about that? Have you expressed outrage about that?
I'm not going to sink to the level of entertaining any kind of propaganda, Hamish.
What's the propaganda included in that question?
Those things have been debunked.
The UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict has said that there are reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred. Are you saying that is propaganda? It's just a question as to whether you've condemned that portion of what has occurred.
Yes, and that's a tactic of the bad faith actors is to try to trip people up. To get them to condemn this and condemn that. We shouldn't be here arguing over brass tacks. I mean, just look at the hypocrisy.
To be fair, let's not diminish the what we're talking about. It's rape and gang rape. Those are the allegations. I don't think it's arguing over.
I do not diminish any of those things, Hamish.
Oh my God!
I'd say she's shaken off the last of those pesky speaking engagements.
She will never need an exploding pager, right?
Okay, one last quick shot, Honk, and that is another emotional farewell to a friend of the show, albeit a friend we've never heard of. A bit Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, this one, as the president of the Kennedy Center, whoever he was, announces his departure, having sold exactly 8 tickets during his tenure.
He was the guy put in by Trump, right?
Yeah, or the guy put in by the guys put in by Trump, but he was a stooge anyway. And we covered the whole saga last year when Trump decided the Kennedy Center was too commie or DEI or not Kid Rock enough or something and fired everybody involved and made himself the chairman. And pretty much every act of any note, musical, dramatic, artistic, has boycotted the Kennedy Center ever since. So it's in all sorts of financial trouble. And of course, Trump has never made a mistake in his life. So now the Kennedy Center is closing for 2 years for, quote, renovations.
It opened in 1971. Maybe it's due for a facelift. Or maybe Trump thought he'd take the Kennedy tribute one step further and let it get to middle age before being assassinated.
Can't believe you said that. Anyway, there's a zero chance that the Kennedy Center renovation will be on time or on budget, so Trump can sue himself over that one as well, at least.
every cloud.
All right, Honk, time for sport, and I am eagerly awaiting your West Tigers match report, but I have to mention this other rugby league moment from last Friday night. Alex Johnson, who plays for another NRL club here in Australia, the South Sydney Rabbitohs, in a game against the Sydney Roosters, broke a record that had stood for 53 years to score the most tries, touchdown equivalents or goal equivalents in rugby league history. 213 tries.
That is absolutely remarkable. I mean, it's even more than that's more than I've scored.
It was. And it's even more extraordinary because Alex Johnson has never really been rated as one of the top players in the game. He's only ever played one game for Australia and he's never played State of Origin for New South Wales.
That explains why Queensland always wins State of Origins, because we don't have anyone who can score any fucking tries.
Spot on it. He made a great comment about it this week. Because he's only ever played for Souths, they commissioned a statue of him. Alex Johnson unveiled the new statue this week. And he said, and I quote, "Along the way, there have been a few that have shat on me. There have been a few coaches that have shat on me. The media has shat on me. Now the pigeons can shit on me."
Napoleon couldn't have talked about immortality better, right? Now, just before my expert report on West Tigers, it would also be remiss of me not to acknowledge a tragedy that I've become aware of in the world of football, that is soccer.
What happened, Honky? Did somebody die?
Well, worse than that, a number of players of football, that is soccer, turn out to have or have been born into families with names that are absolutely unacceptable. They probably wish they died. You don't look that concerned, Henry, but that
I don't know where this is going.
Well, that's because you are only about to hear these names for the first time as I read them. Now, I'm just going to bring up...
This is real life 12th man.
This is real life. Here we go. The names of some of these players. First of all, there's Giz Hornkamp. plays for the Dutch A-League team AZ. From the Austrian A-League team Lask, there's a young player called Jacob Wanker. Then you got...
I actually have seen him.
Then
play soccer.
Play
Soccer with others, not just himself.
From the UK's National League South Club, Dagenham and Redbridge, there's Naughty Naughty.
No.
It's Naughty Naughty, N-O-R-T-E-I and then N-O-R-T-E-Y.
African guys, yeah.
Please, yeah. God, let him be African. Please, God. Then there's the great Argentinian goalkeeper, now sadly retired, but clearly still very busy. His name is Fabian Arsman. and
What's an Arsman?
Always. And who can forget the former German player, coach, and now the sporting director of the German Football League, Dynamo Dresden, Ralph Minge.
He's never lost his taste for the game, has he, Honk? His hunger. All right, no more shilly-shallying. Tell us about the West Tigers' triumph this past weekend.
Well, what a day for us true Tigers fans, Henry.
To quote you two again, Honky, it was a beautiful day, wasn't it?
Glorious weather mid-afternoon at the Tigers' spiritual home ground of Leichhardt Oval in Sydney, one of the last suburban ovals, sold out at about 18,000 spectators. Tigers thumped the North Queensland Cowboys 44-16. I think it's the Tigers' first season opener win in maybe 6 years. We were so dominant, I actually thought we'd make not just 44, but 50. But we did fumble a couple of try conversions for those extra couple of points each time.
Right. What went wrong there, Honk, do you think?
I think we just needed that extra little bit of fan support. You know, those people who claim to be Tigers fans but live in Melbourne and can't be asked making the trip.
I don't know anyone like that, Honk.
Even worse, these so-called Tigers fans who live in Melbourne, but even when they're in Sydney for the weekend of the game, cannot be fucked turning up to a game about 10 minutes from where they're staying.
I have no idea who you're talking about, but when I find them, Honk, there's going to be trouble. It was sold out, okay? You said it yourself. So to change the subject to something more positive / less incriminating, take us through the game itself. You're a fan, and I believe now something of an expert on rugby league.
Well, expert's a strong word. I don't know about expert. You know, I'm not like you with petroleum, but I do know the game of rugby league inside out. So I will try not to make this too technical so you can keep up, okay? Tigers were great in the first half, I thought, running one way. Then the second half, if you could believe it, they ran the other way.
Wow. It sounds like it was the right way both times, which is unusual for the Tigers.
In fairness, the other team also ran one way in the first half and the other way in the second half. But I think they were just copying the Tigers. Frankly, it was kind of embarrassing. What else? Tigers dribbled the ball really well.
Right, they dribble well, did they? Like kicking or in basketball dribbling?
They played in a really good 4-2-3-1 formation, I thought.
All right, so it must be soccer. I think you heard me say that about soccer last week on the show.
The Tigers' service game was great, I thought. The volleys were good, backhands, very few unforced errors.
Oh, it was a smart move to bring Carlos Alcaraz onto the coaching staff, wasn't it?
Sure was. Every three-pointer went right in the net. Hang time, magnificent. They also kept a really tight rein, I thought. Really tight leash on the horse. Kept it coming right down the straight.
I think rein is the word, not leash. I think dogs have leashes, not horses. But
I knew that, do you mind?
And how was their fitness level, Honk?
Their movement around the whole squash court was incredible. They sank every putt, and I don't think a single player missed a single mogul the whole way down the mountain.
So the Tigers are looking good this season, in your view?
Put it this way, I've already bought my NASCAR finals tickets.
I am kicking myself. I missed it, Honky.
Don't beat yourself up. They have a match at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next weekend in London.
The one against Depeche Mode.
Oh, you know that. I'm impressed. Anyway, go Richmond Tigers.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Honk. It was a great win. But we're not just both clearly rugby league experts. We know our way around another critical subject too. The one our most sophisticated listeners, people like Lady Rebecca of Centennial Park, look forward to every week. It's time for Ahmed Khan, the great man, a.k.a. Cunt of the Week. Music, please.
Ahmed Khan.
And Honk, first, honourable mention to our Cunters Emeritus, Donald Trump, who's won this segment so many times he cannot win it again, but it cannot go unremarked. And the news broke this week that when Trump demanded the sale of TikTok, which is owned by Chinese interests, to continue operating in the US, he arranged for the Trump administration to receive, quote unquote, a brokerage fee.
Do I want to know the number?
Well, forget Dr. Evil $1 million. $10 billion.
Did you know? Interesting little side fact. In many languages, the word for brokerage fee and the word for overt shameless corruption is the same.
And Trump administration was very loosely defined. I think he means Trump family.
Yeah, indeed.
But okay, let's get into this week's cuts.
Yes, first of all, really wouldn't be Cunt of the Week at the moment without a little Iranian regime country. We covered last week the story of a number of Iranian women's football team who, while they were in Australia for the Women's Asian Cup, sought and received asylum. And we also reported a number of those women then decided against asylum and to return to Iran. As of recording time, there are now only 2 of those Iranian women who are still proposing to take asylum in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. And now we know why. We kept thinking, well, why? Why would you do that? And it turns out that when they went into their safe house here in Australia en route to seeking asylum, a supporter came with them, a woman speaking perfect English who called herself Fleur. In other words, she appeared to be Australian. Turns out Fleur was not Fleur. She was and is a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and proceeded to show the women on an iPad video of their families who had already been taken into detention in prison, begging for their lives. What fucking cunts.
It's unbelievable, except extremely believable.
Yeah. Now, Henry, living in Australia, you smell smoke. Often it's a bushfire or burning off to prevent a bushfire, but sometimes it is the dumb cunts at a professional Aussie sporting organisation who've taken one too many shots to the head Overthinking things until they make no fucking sense at all. Case in point, the Australian Rules Football Club, the Sydney Swans, we've made a lot of fun of.
Indeed.
A week or so back, before the opening match of the season, in front of a sellout crowd at the Sydney Cricket Ground, the Swans CEO, a guy called Matthew Pavlich, paid tribute to all the people killed at the Bondi Beach terrorist attack. He did it in front of all these invited survivors of the attack and did not mention Jewish Australians, 13 of whom were killed, as being the target of the attack at all. You might be thinking not even an Aussie sports club could be that fucking dumb, and you'd be right. References, it turns out, to Jews as the target of the attack were in the CEO's speech until someone else at the club told him to take any reference to Jews out so the speech would be more, quote, inclusive. We know that happened is because as a former Swans player turned journo, and in fact he's a Swans and AFL Hall of Famer, Jared Healy, and he broke the story. Yeah, great player. And he broke the story, and the chairman of the Swans, Andrew Pridham, immediately turned around and confirmed it. Don't overthink, dumb cunts. I can smell the smoke from here.
Well, we described AFL and the Swans in particular as football for teal snobs, and there's another data point right there. But Honk, now we come to our finalists, and it's close. It's very close, actually. Probably runner-up is the current Iranian regime Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, who we've mentioned already on the show. He's either severely injured, in a coma, or actually dead. Certainly hasn't been seen in public once since his elevation to the job. On top of being previously in charge of the Basij, which was the 600,000-strong security force that killed thousands of Iranian protesters last year, this humble, pious fellow, leader of a country with rampant unemployment and food shortages, turns out to be a property magnate with £200 million worth of property in his portfolio. Can you believe it? And pride of place, Honky, are 2 luxury apartments now worth a combined £50 million. And you know why? Because of their prime location in Kensington Gardens, a beautiful part of London, right next to the Israeli embassy. Can you believe it?
What a hypocritical cunt. Unbelievable.
Ayatollah Ahmed Khan.
But Henry, as you said, it's very close, and he would have been a worthy winner. Who knows, if he was alive, he'd be a worthy winner.
Well, he's not available to collect the award, is he? At this stage.
He might at best be hopping. Although he might want to show off the beautiful new breasts. We don't know.
Send in Fleur to have a talk to him.
But our winner this week, Henry, is a dark horse, came out of nowhere. Her name is Kuri Richards. She has just been convicted of murder in the state of Utah in the US for poisoning her husband with fentanyl. But to say that she poisoned her husband with fentanyl does not even touch the sides. She did it because she was $4.5 million in debt as a real estate house flipper, which the husband didn't know. She was also having an affair with another guy who she planned to marry after she killed the husband. She had previously tried and failed to kill the husband with a fentanyl sandwich. When she finally got him...
Lovely.
Delicious. When she finally got him...
mushrooms. We use mushrooms in here.
When she finally killed him, she got him with 5 times the lethal fentanyl dose. But it's the genius of the plan that gets Kuri the win this week. Her housekeeper flipped on Kuri in the murder trial. Now, why does that matter? Because the housekeeper is who sold her the 50 bazillion doses of fentanyl.
Right.
Kuri's phone searches were also magnificent. They include such classic FM radio hits as, quote, "Can cops uncover deleted iPhone messages?" "What is a lethal dose of fentanyl?" "Luxury prisons for the rich - America."
You're making this up.
And my favorite, quote, "If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as?" The defense team were even dumber than her. They didn't even call her or anyone else as a witness because they were so confident she'd be acquitted. But here's the best bit, which is what puts her over the top as cunt of the week, is that in May 2023, when she thought she'd gotten away with it, she wrote a book and published it called Are You With Me? Based on her experience as a widow, all about dealing with grief. It was a book for children. She dedicated to her own children, and she couldn't even be fucked to write it. She got a company to write it for her. Kuri Richards, you did it. You beat the current Ayatollah to do it. Congratulations, our cunt of the week.
Oh, well done, Kuri. Your Utah Jazz season tickets are in the mail. You can also see Coldplay. They're playing at the Utah Jazz Arena. You can say hello to your husband. Kind regards, Mike Cannon-Brooks. All right, Honky, that's all we have time for. So thanks for your company, and thanks for your company, listeners, particularly on our 50th episode. They said we'd never make it, and they were pretty much right. But still, you can watch our episode on video on YouTube. The link is in our show notes, or just search on YouTube. Drop us a like or a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And on Spotify, you also have a choice of video, or if you scare easily, you have audio only. We're on audio everywhere else you get your podcast, but you know that because you're listening to it. Also find us in all the usual social media locations, especially TikTok, Instagram, and again, YouTube for our short clips. And remember to share us with your friends on your socials or your WhatsApp groups and so on. It really helps us grow the show.
Yes. As we always say, please check out our show notes where you can send us text from those show notes. We'll read it on the show. You can send us a voicemail direct from the show notes. We'll play it on the show. And do read our show notes for jokes that are often so dumb that even Corey Richards wouldn't write them. Although maybe she'd have them written by Henry Lee.
Thank you. We'll be back next week at the usual time of early Saturday morning or ASAP thereafter. Until then, as you know, we like to finish the show with some video/audio of particular crookery, fuckwitticism or moronification. Honky, what have you gone with this week?
Well, Henry, in your honour, this is a doozy befitting our 50th episode. This is the rapper Afro Man. He of the Because I Got High, you know that song? Because I Got High, because I Got High.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, he won a defamation trial brought against him by two cops who in 2022 were part of a raid on Afro Man's house in Ohio when he wasn't at home, in which they busted his gates, kicked in his front door, trashed his house, took cash they never returned, pointed guns at his kids, ended up never charging him with anything. So in response, Afro Man released two music videos which have done millions of views. One is called Will You Help Me Repair My Door? And the other one's called 11-Pound Cake. And without going into detail, it's not about cake. These videos feature security footage from Afro Man's own cameras of the two cops conducting the raid on his house. And he expresses certain sentiments, let's just say, about the cops in question in his videos. You're going to see a snippet of the music video for...
So what? They broke into his house and he used his own home camera footage to make a music video sticking it up the...
Yeah.
And they've sued him for defamation.
For defamation. And when you see a bit snippet of the video, you'll kind of understand why they did because of what he said. You're going to see a snippet of the music video for Will You Help Me Repair My Door, a snippet of the evidence given by one of the cops about why it upset him, and then a bit of other stuff. Not to give anything away, but here's just a little flavour of the kind of thing you're in for.
In my opinion, I fucked his wife doggy style. He said it like they were facts.
Probably a good time to say it's not suitable for children, or maybe you should have said that 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, fair point. Henry, what about you this week? What have you got in store for us?
Well, I'm going to go old school for our 50th episode, our golden 50th, and I'm going again with Trump's car out at the White House from a year to the week last year. It might be just 50 scandals ago as well, Honky. Wow. Think about it. It's the two musketeers, Trump and Elon Musk himself, a relationship now sadly broken up like their 106 marriages. But hey, they'll always have computer.
So true. Thank you for your company. Please enjoy Trump selling cars from the White House, then the revenge of the Afro Man. And we'll be back next week because as the dear Henry Lee always says,
if I plan to poison the honk, what incredibly secret plan should I go with? And stupid never sleeps.
What's your best of these cars? What do you think?
Well, the car that I drive is the Model S Plaid.
Which is that one?
That red one in the middle.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2 seconds. So faster than a Ferrari.
That's pretty fast.
Have you ever sat
Let me get in
steering
a
wheel
second.
of one of these? Of a Tesla?
You want my notes?
Yeah.
They gave me notes. I said, I'm not Biden. I don't need notes.
I'll take one.
Wow.
I'm getting this other side.
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful. Wow.
Randy Walters is the son of a bitch. Yeah, that's why I fucked his wife and got filthy rich. Yeah.
So you're claiming that is the defamation statement is that he said he had sex with your wife?
Yes.
Okay. And that's painted you in a false light?
It's caused tremendous pain in my life.
I'll get to that. We have to go through false light first. So does it paint you in a false light?
Yes, that my wife is cheating on me with Mr. Foreman.
But we all know that's not true, correct?
I don't know.
I didn't win. America won. America still has freedom of speech. It's still for the people, by the people. Stop stealing my dough. Stop stealing my dough. Stop disconnecting my bitch.